Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please place all electronic devices to vibrate. Madam Majority Leader.
Good afternoon and welcome to the stated meeting of May 28, 2025. I am Majority Leader Amanda Farias and I'd like to thank you for joining us. If you would like to follow along, the agenda for today's meeting is posted on our website. On behalf of the body, I welcome the members of the public who have joined us here today. During stated meetings, only members of the council may speak. Members of the public shall remain silent. If you wish to express your support of any remarks, you may make the silent approval gesture. I want to remind my colleagues that decorum is to be respected at all times. Insulting each other is not appropriate. All remarks are to be addressed to the chair and members shall not speak unless recognized by the chair. It is essential that even if we disagree, we treat each other with respect.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Roll call.
Abreu.
Present.
Aviles.
Presente.
Ayala.
Here.
Banks.
Here.
Botcher.
Present.
Brannan. Here. Brewer. Brooks Powers. Caban.
Present.
Carr.
Here.
Della Rosa.
Here.
Dinowitz.
Here.
Felder. Felice. Gennaro. Gutierrez.
Presente.
Hanif.
Here.
Hanks.
Present.
Thank you. Holden.
Here.
Hudson.
Present.
Joseph. Krishnan. Lee. Lewis.
Present.
Marmorato.
Present.
Marte.
Here.
Mealy. Menin.
Here.
Morano.
Here.
Moya.
Here.
Narcisse.
Present.
Nurse. Osei.
Present.
Palladino.
Present.
Powers. Wrestler.
Here.
Riley.
Majority Leader, I request permission to vote on all items on today's agenda.
Permission granted.
I vote aye and present. Thank you.
Rivera.
Councilmember Riley, I'll need you to hold and wait and post attendance in order to vote.
Rivera. Salam.
Present.
Salamanca.
Present.
Sanchez. Shulman.
Here.
Stevens. Ung.
Present.
Vernikoff.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Apologies, present.
Sanchez.
Present.
Thank you. 1. Zhuang.
Present.
Ariola.
Present.
Joseph. 1.
Present.
Thank you. Farias.
Present.
Speaker Adams.
Present.
Thank you. We will now have today's invocation, which will be delivered by the Reverend Nell Archer of Bushwick Abbey and Iglesia de la Santa Cruz, which is located at 176 St. Nicholas Avenue in Brooklyn.
Let us pray. We call upon you, source and creator of all, redeemer of the fallen, advocate for the persecuted, mother of the forsaken, and repairer of the breach. You who go by many names and no name. You have bound us together in a common life. Help us in the midst of our struggles for justice and truth to confront one another without hatred or bitterness, and to work together with mutual forbearance and respect. Grant that your holy and life-giving Spirit may so move every human heart that barriers which divide us may crumble, suspicions disappear, and hatred cease. That our divisions being healed, we may live in justice and peace. In your word, you have given us a vision of a holy city to which the nations of the world bring their glory. Behold and visit, we pray, all the cities of this earth. Renew the ties of mutual regard which form our civic life. Send us honest and able leaders. Enable us to eliminate poverty, prejudice, and oppression, that peace and justice may prevail, and that people from different cultures and with differing talents may find with one another the fulfillment of their humanity. Now grant these members of our City Council gathered here today the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people. In the name of the one holy and living God. Amen.
I'll ask Councilmember Sandy Nurse to spread the invocation on the record.
Thank you so much, Majority Leader. Just a few words about Mother Nell Archer. Mother Nell Archer was adorned to the priesthood in the Episcopal Church in 2010. The Reverend Nell Archer serves as the vicar of Iglesia de la Santa Cruz and Bushwick Abbey in Bushwick, Brooklyn. These two congregations in the Episcopal Diocese of Long Island strive to build bridges across culture and language to share the good news of reconciliation and justice in a diverse neighborhood. She received her bachelor's from Duke University and her master's of divinity from the General Theological Seminary. Thank you so much, Nell, for being here. I make a motion to spread today's invocation on the record. Thank you, Majority Leader.
Thank you. We will ask Councilmember Farrah Lewis for the adoption of minutes.
I make a motion that the minutes of the stated meeting of April 24th, 2025 and May 1st, 2025 be adopted as printed.
Messages and papers from the mayor.
M128 through M133, various budget documents.
Finance.
M134, city debt and reserves.
Received, ordered, printed, and filed.
Communication from city, county, and borough offices.
M's 135 and 136, budget modifications.
Finance.
M137, discount rate.
Received, ordered, printed, and filed.
M138, certification of election of Frank Morano, council member, 51st District.
Received, ordered, printed, and filed.
M139, statement of debt affordability.
Received, ordered, printed, and filed.
M140, Commissioner of Elections recommendation.
Received, ordered, printed, and filed.
Petitions and communications.
None.
Land use call-ups.
M141 through M143.
Thank you. I now ask that the clerk take a roll call vote on all of today's land use call-ups.
Abreu.
Aye.
Aviles.
Aye.
Ayala. Banks.
Aye.
Botcher.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Brewer. Brooks Powers.
Aye.
Caban.
Aye.
Carr.
Aye.
De La Rosa.
Aye.
Dinowitz.
Aye.
Felder. Feliz.
Aye on all.
Gennaro.
Aye.
Thank you. Gutierrez.
Aye.
Ayala. Land use call-ups.
Aye.
Thank you. Hanif.
Aye.
Hanks.
Aye.
Holden.
Majority Leader, I request permission to vote on all items on the general order calendar at this time.
Permission granted, Councilmember Holden.
Aye on all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hudson.
Aye.
Joseph.
Aye.
Thank you. Krishnan. Lee. Lewis.
Aye.
Marmorato.
I vote aye.
Marte.
Aye.
Mealy. Menin.
Aye.
Morano.
Aye.
Moya.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Narcisse.
I vote aye.
Aye. Palladino. Powers. Wrestler.
Aye.
Riley.
Majority Leader, I request permission again to vote on all items on today's agenda.
Permission granted.
I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rivera.
Aye.
Thank you. Salam. I vote aye. Salamanca.
I vote aye.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Thank you. Schulman.
Aye.
Stevens.
Majority Leader, I request to vote for all items on today's agenda.
Permission granted.
Aye on all except SLR 5.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ung.
Aye.
Vernikov.
Aye on all except reconsidered Reso 875 and SLR 2, for which I vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Williams.
I vote aye.
1.
Aye.
Zhuang. Palladino. Land use call-ups.
Aye.
Thank you. Ariola.
I vote aye.
Farias.
I vote aye.
Speaker Adams.
Aye.
Today's land use call-ups are adopted by a vote of 47 in the affirmative and 0 in the negative. We will now have communication from Speaker Adrian Adams.
Thank you very much, Majority Leader, and good afternoon, everyone. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the life of Congressman Charlie Rangel. He was a giant figure for Harlem, New York City, and the entire nation. He fought for this country in the Korean War and dedicated his life to fighting for working families in our city and our country. He was the first Black chair of the House Ways and Means Committee and a force representing New York City in Congress for decades. I was honored to know him. His legacy will continue to live on in our city and within all of us who were influenced by him. I also want to acknowledge the unimaginable tragedy that took place last Wednesday when Yaron Lishinsky and Sarah Milgram, 2 workers at the Israeli embassy, were killed in a horrific anti-Semitic attack. No one should be the target of violence due to their religion, background, or beliefs, and our Jewish community, like all communities, deserve to be safe. We must continue to work together to root out anti-Semitism in all forms of hate. My heart and prayers are with Yaron and Sarah's families and communities who must now carry the unbearable weight of their losses. Earlier this month, our city lost members of our own workforce. Anthony Austin, affectionately known as Tony, served NYC Media for 20 years as a camera operator, covering city council hearings and meetings, as well as events all around City Hall. A New York Emmy Award winner, Tony dedicated his life to amplifying underrepresented voices, especially those in our Black and Latino communities. He leaves behind his wife, Natalia, and his children, Derry, Michael, Mateos, and Christina. Tony's presence, his infectious smile, and kind nature will be missed all around City Hall, particularly with his peers and colleagues, and my heart goes out to all of his loved ones, his family, and his entire team at NYC Media. I also want to acknowledge the life of Raymond Fiege, a DEP engineer who died over the weekend after an explosion on board a barge in the Hudson River. We also mourn the lives of 2 construction workers who died while on the job in Little Italy earlier this month, as well as 2 naval cadets, America Yamilet Sanchez and Adel Jair Marcos, who were killed when a Mexican Navy training ship struck the Brooklyn Bridge last week. Lastly, I want to acknowledge the life of Ashik Hussein, a 53-year-old New Yorker who died in a fatal fire in Councilmember Aviles' district last week. My heart is with their loved ones and their family as they navigate this tragedy. My thoughts are with all of the families and loved ones who are grieving today. This week is the final week of our executive budget hearings for fiscal year 2026. And I want to thank all council members and their staff for their hard work throughout this budget process thus far. A special thanks goes to our Finance Chair, Justin Brannan, for his leadership, all of our committee chairs and our Finance Division for their commitment throughout these weeks of hearings. And to the members of the public who offered testimony, thank you for your continued engagement and sharing your input through this process to help us advance a better budget for our city. As we continue our negotiations with the mayoral administration, the council will push forward to secure a budget that addresses the needs of New Yorkers. There is still significant work to be done to fill in the gaps in funding for programs left out of the executive budget. Throughout our hearings, we identified outstanding funding gaps and heard from New Yorkers across the city who rely on adequate city services to safely and successfully continue living in our city. We must ensure that New York City is a place where all our fellow neighbors, regardless of income, background, or experience, build healthy and productive lives. May 19th was Malcolm X Day and would have been his 100th birthday. We honor his legacy, immense contributions, and fight for justice and equity, which we celebrated here in Chambers on the 15th. Last week was National EMS Week, honoring our frontline emergency response workers and the important work they do every day to keep us healthy and safe. I want to personally thank all of our EMS workers for their dedication to our communities, including and especially my own daughter, Aliyah, who proudly serves our city as an FDNY paramedic. Last Sunday was the 5th anniversary of George Floyd's murder. We must recommit ourselves to the fight for justice and to advance policies that keep all of us safe. While this council has championed reforms that prioritize the safety and dignity of all people, we know that there is far more that must be done to secure the just future that all of us deserve. We also observed Memorial Day on Monday to honor and commemorate service members who paid the ultimate sacrifice in service to our country. My father, my father-in-law, and my husband all served in the Air Force, and I know many of you and New Yorkers across all 5 boroughs have loved ones who have served our country, and I hope everyone had a meaningful Memorial Day. May 26th was Guyana's Independence Day. I'm so proud that in my own district, the Great 28, we are home to vibrant little Guyana. Next Monday and Tuesday mark Shavuot. As members of our Jewish communities gather with their family and friends, I wish all New Yorkers who are celebrating a happy and safe Shavuot. This Sunday, June 1st, the council will be marching in the Queen's Pride Parade. And on Sunday, June 8th, we will march in the Puerto Rican Day Parade. I invite you all to join us for both. Now let's move on to our stated agenda. First, we'll vote on the following land use items. Atlantic Avenue Mixed Use Plan, a neighborhood plan in Council Members Hudson and Osage districts that will deliver 4,600 new units of housing, approximately 1,900 of which will be permanently affordable. This will single-handedly produce more affordable housing in that area than has been constructed over the entire past decade. The project also includes over $215 million in newly committed funding for community investments in infrastructure. Through the negotiation process, the council secured investments for increased services in central Brooklyn, including for tenant and homeowner protections, streets and public realm improvements to improve traffic and quality of life, renovations of 6 neighborhood parks and playgrounds, improvements to local MTA subway stations, modernized infrastructure, and economic development opportunities. The council is modifying the applications to require MIH Option 1. The council's partnership with the Department of City Planning and community stakeholders, including Brooklyn Community Boards 3 and 8, represents a model of community planning and collaboration that can advance housing solutions and community investments that benefit all New Yorkers. This council has led on confronting the city's housing crisis, approving citywide zoning reforms, neighborhood rezonings, and individual land use applications that constitute 120,000 units of housing. You all can give yourselves a round of applause for that. That's a lot. The Atlantic Avenue Mixed-Use Plan is the second neighborhood rezoning this council will vote on. Combined with the Bronx Metro-North Station's rezoning, they will produce over 11,000 housing units. And there are more neighborhood rezonings in the pipeline. We know New Yorkers urgently need more affordable homes to stay in our city. And under the leadership of this council, we are delivering for our communities. I'd like to thank our planning and land use teams, Paris Strotter, Brian Paul, Ann McCoy, William Vidal, and Tim Anderson for their years of engagement alongside council members Hudson and Osage to help make this effort such a success. 2510 Coney Island Avenue rezoning, a private application to facilitate a new 4-story mixed-use development with ground floor commercial space and approximately 28 housing units, 8 of which will be affordable under MIH Option 2 in Councilmember Ina Vernikoff's district. 19 Maspeth Avenue rezoning, a private application to facilitate the development of a new 6-story mixed-use building with ground floor commercial space and 15 residential units, 4 to 5 of which will be affordable under MIH in Councilmember Jennifer Gutierrez's district. 2201 through 2227 Neptune Avenue rezoning, a private application to facilitate the development of a new 18-story mixed-use building with 145 housing units, 37 to 44 of which will be affordable under MIH in Councilmember Justin Brannon's district. We will also vote on the following finance items. Introduction 1219, sponsored by Deputy Speaker Diana Ayala, would establish the East Harlem 125th Street Business Improvement District in Manhattan. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Justin Brannon would establish that the interest rate be 16% per year for fiscal year 2026 for non-payment of taxes on properties with an assessed value of more than $450,000 or more than that per residential unit for cooperative apartments. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannon would establish that the interest rate be 9% per year for fiscal year 2026 for non-payment of taxes on properties with an assessed value of more than $250,000 but less than or equal to $450,000 or that range per residential unit for cooperative apartments. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannon would establish that the interest rate be 6% per year for fiscal year 2026 for non-payment of taxes on properties with an assessed value of less than $250,000 or less than that per residential unit for cooperative apartments. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannon would establish that the interest rate be 2.5% per year for fiscal year 2026 for certain properties for which the owner has entered into a payment installment agreement with the Department of Finance for payment of delinquent property taxes, assessments, or other charges. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannon would establish that the discount percentage for early payment of real estate taxes be set at 0.5% per year for fiscal year 2026. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannon establishing a new 40-year Article 11 tax exemption and renewing an Article 5 exemption for 3 lots in Councilmember Carmen de la Rosa's district. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannon would approve an Article 11 exemption for 1 lot in Councilmember Keith Powers' district. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannon establishing a new 40-year Article 11 tax exemption for 1 lot in Councilmember Shaker Krishnan's district. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannon would approve an Article 11 tax exemption for 1 lot in Minority Leader Joanne Ariola's district. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannon would approve the new designation and changes in the designation of certain organizations to receive funding in the expense budget. Next, we will vote on the following appointments. Stephen Chu, reappointed by the Mayor to the Landmarks Preservation Commission. Angie Master, reappointed by the Mayor to the Landmarks Preservation Commission. Stephen Wilder, appointed by the Mayor to the Landmarks Preservation Commission. Erasmus Epwembe, appointed by the Mayor to the Landmarks Preservation Commission. Frank Mahal, appointed by the Mayor to the Landmarks Preservation Commission. And Robert J. Firestone, appointed by the Mayor as President of the New York City Tax Commission. Next, we'll vote on the following home rule resolutions. A preconsidered SLR will amend the Retirement and Social Security law to restore the 20-year service retirement for certain New York City correction officers and sanitation workers. A preconsidered SLR will amend the Retirement and Social Security law in relation to death benefits for active New York City Transit Authority members. A preconsidered SLR will amend the Administrative Code in relation to granting members of the NYPD eligibility for retirement and pension benefits based on previous service as traffic enforcement agents. And a preconsidered SLR will amend the Vehicle and Traffic Law in relation to owner liability for failure to comply with street cleaning parking rules. Today, we'll also vote on the following pieces of legislation. Resolution 368A, sponsored by Councilmember Shahana Hanif, calls on Congress to reintroduce and pass, and the President to sign, the Living Wage for Musicians Act. This legislation would establish a new streaming royalty to ensure fairer compensation for artists and musicians. Thank you to our staff members Elizabeth Arts, Ri Ogasawa, and Ri Ogasara. Introduction 1207A, sponsored by Councilmember De La Rosa, would allow participants for a high-pressure boiler engineer license to concurrently complete the 2-year apprenticeship program and 3-year practical experience requirements within the same 3-year time frame. Thank you to our staff members Jahari Frazier, Austin Malone, Jose Conde, Andrew Bourne, and Dirk Spencer. Introduction 676A, sponsored by Majority Leader Amanda Farias, would require that the Taxi and Limousine Commission conduct a study on the challenges and opportunities related to increasing the use of electric for-hire vehicles and installing new charging infrastructure. We thank our staff members Stephanie Ali, Elliot Heisler, and Mark Chen. Introduction 1037A, sponsored by Councilmember Sandy Nurse, would require the owner of a multiple dwelling unit with rent-stabilized units to post a sign stating that the building contains such units and providing information for how tenants can submit inquiries to New York State Homes and Community Renewal to find out if their units are rent-stabilized. Thank you to our staff members Elliot Heisler, Austin Malone, Jose Conde, Andrew Bourne, and Dirk Spencer. Introduction 412A, sponsored by Councilmember Lincoln Ressler, would require Correctional Health Services to seek authorization from an individual in custody of the Department of Correction to contact their attorney of record and emergency contacts if the individual attempts suicide, is hospitalized, or is seriously injured. CHS would be required to notify parties authorized by the individual to receive this information within 3 hours of CHS confirming the suicide attempt, determining that hospitalization is necessary, or evaluating that an injury is serious with limited exception. Thank you to our staff members Jeremy Whiteman and Natalie Meltzer. Introduction 1148A, sponsored by Councilmember Tiffany Caban, would require the Department of Social Services to provide an application confirmation notice and document receipts to any applicant for cash assistance or SNAP benefits. DSS would also be required to make an electronic copy of submitted documents available. Thank you to our staff members, Sahara Monzami and Nina Rosenberg. Introduction 905A, sponsored by Councilmember Julie Won, would establish a 6-month pilot program to evaluate food quality feedback surveys for city food contracts valued at $1 million or more. Participating agencies would post their findings online within 30 days after the pilot concludes, and the Office of Food Policy would evaluate the program's effectiveness and make recommendations for future feedback initiatives. Thank you to our staff members Alex Polinoff, Chris Satori, and Alex Yablon. And Introduction 1067B, sponsored by Councilmember Natasha Williams, would require the existing Southeast Queens flood mitigation plan to incorporate updates on any New York City groundwater studies. The bill would also create an interagency task force to recommend changes to policies with regard to Southeast Queens flooding adaptation assistance. This task force would be required to publish 5 annual reports detailing their recommendations, and DEP would be required to administer a partnership program to facilitate information sharing regarding flooding conditions and sewer infrastructure with organizations that provide flood adaptation assistance to New York City home owners. About time. Thank you, Councilmember Williams. Thank you to our staff members, Natasha Bynum, Sierra Townsend, and Andrew Bourne, Ricky Chawla, and Austin Malone. Thank you so much for your attention. Now I will turn it back over to our Majority Leader.
Thank you, Speaker Adams. We have a quorum now, and we have to maintain said quorum in order to conduct all business in today's meeting. No member is allowed to leave the chamber floor. Additionally, no member virtually can participate if quorum is not maintained on the floor. We will now move into the discussion of general orders. I'd like to first recognize Councilmember Caban, followed by Williams, then Hudson.
Thank you. Never been called first, Majority Leader. Caught me off guard. I want to talk about the Intro 1148, the Receipts Act. This legislation marks an important step toward greater transparency, accountability, and trust in our city's public benefits system. The Receipts Act ensures that applicants for key benefits like cash assistance, one-shot deals, and food stamps receive an application confirmation notice when they apply. This notice will indicate whether the application is complete, and if not, what steps remain. It also requires that applicants receive a detailed receipt after submitting documents, including the date, type of documents, and the purpose of submission. These may seem like minor procedural updates, but for those seeking vital support, they can mean the difference between clarity and confusion, between getting help and falling through the cracks. For too long, navigating public benefits has been a frustrating and opaque process. Have often left without documentation of their status, and this bill tackles that issue with clear, common sense solutions, and it was crafted to serve and uplift New Yorkers by my Constituent Services Director, Melissa Correa, so shout out to her, and my Legislative Director, Jonah Birch. And also thank you to all of the constituent service teams in all of my colleagues' offices. Chronic underfunding and understaffing at agencies like DSS have left too many New Yorkers struggling to access life-saving services during times of need. The Receipts Act is about restoring dignity to a system that has left many feeling powerless. It ensures people have the tools to advocate for themselves and ensures that the government serves New Yorkers better. I thank the advocates, service providers, and New Yorkers who share their stories and made clear how urgently this change was needed. And I look forward to working with DSS and HRA to implement this legislation effectively and thoughtfully. Together, we can ensure the Receipts Act fulfills its promise, a benefit system that better serves the people. So thank you again to my colleagues for supporting this vital measure.
Recognizing Councilmember Williams, followed by Hudson, then Nurse.
Thank you so much, Madam Majority Leader. For decades, homeowners in Southeast Queens have lived with the consequences of a problem most New Yorkers have never heard of: groundwater flooding. This issue began decades ago as changes to the area's natural water table followed the closure of local wells and shifts in land use. Unlike storm-driven flooding, groundwater flooding happens slowly and silently, damaging basements, boilers, and foundations without warning. It's a problem my constituents of Southeast Queens know all too well. Intro 1067B brings much-needed focus and coordination to an issue that has gone unaddressed for far too long. It ensures the city is collecting data, paying attention to the patterns, and beginning to understand the full scope of groundwater flooding across all 5 boroughs. And for Southeast Queens, where residents have dealt with this quietly for years. 1067B creates a path forward toward coordinating long-term solutions. This includes the creation of a dedicated task force charged with centering the lived experiences of Southeast Queens residents and recommending practical strategies for adaptation and relief. And for all New Yorkers, this bill will help guide smarter, more informed planning and investments across our city. This is what responsive, community-rooted government looks like. I really want to thank Speaker Adrienne Adams, who also represents Southeast Queens, for her leadership, and my council colleagues, especially Chair Jim Gennaro, who has been a long advocate on groundwater flooding in Southeast Queens, for standing with us and every New Yorker with the quiet crisis of groundwater flooding. And I really want to just give a special shout out to the Legislative Division, Natasha and Andrew, because they worked really hard to make this a bill that we can legally pass. It's very difficult and complicated. So I really want to thank them for their dedication to bringing this across the finish line. Thank you.
Recognizing Councilmember Hudson, followed by Nurse, then Osei.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Majority Leader. I'm proud to stand today and speak for no more than 2 minutes about the Atlantic Avenue Mixed-Use Plan, also known as AIM-UP, that we're voting on today. It's the culmination of more than a decade of advocacy from local residents and nearly 3 years of public engagement, hard work, and tireless negotiations. Central Brooklyn is finally getting the community-led rezoning it has long demanded. AIM-UP will bring 4,600 new homes to Central Brooklyn, 40% of which will be affordable for low and moderate income New Yorkers, along with more than $215 million in dedicated funding for infrastructure upgrades, park and playground renovations, funding for local hiring programs, as well as resources for tenant and homeowner protections, and so much more for our communities. With this community-led rezoning, we're tackling several major crises facing our city: a housing shortage, dangerous streets, and the urgent need for good-paying jobs accessible to all New Yorkers, regardless of education level. This process shows what's possible when planning is led by the community and backed by political will. We can build more affordable housing and deliver real, lasting benefits to neighborhoods across the city. Thank you to the communities of Prospect Heights, Crown Heights, Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, and Bedford-Stuyvesant for envisioning a better future for Atlantic Avenue, and to the many city agencies and council staff who worked tirelessly to get us here. And of course, a huge thank you to my partner in this work, Councilmember Chiosei, who stood shoulder to shoulder with me throughout this process and whose relentless advocacy and steadfast leadership helped us across the finish line. I've also made my Chiosei video debut, so if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on AIM-UP, and I hope that more communities across the city begin the deep consensus-building work needed to bring about more affordable housing, safer streets, better parks, and stronger neighborhoods. Thank you.
Recognizing Councilmember Nurse, followed by Osei.
Thank you, Majority Leader. I, too, have had a Chiosei video debut. Today we are voting on my bill, Intro 1037, the Rent Transparency Act. The bill will require signage in the common areas of all buildings subject to the rent stabilization law that notifies tenants that one or more units in the building are rent stabilized. The sign will direct them to the New York State Department of Homes and Community Renewal website, where they can request their rental history. The bill also alerts tenants that their landlords may be subject to fines if they do not register their units with DHCR. Many tenants living in rent-stabilized units don't know how to determine their legal rent, and in turn, bad landlords have gotten away with illegal rent overcharges and have illegally deregulated units and whole buildings. The Rent Transparency Act acts as a counter to this information gap and makes it clear that landlords with apartment units that are out of compliance can face fines. Rent overcharge complaints have increased from 500 annually just a few years ago to over 900 last year, and this is just from tenants who took action. There are probably thousands who didn't. And as we continue to lose New Yorkers to the astounding cost of living, rising rents remain a top concern for millions of New Yorkers. Let's help relieve just some of the burden on tenants by giving them some clarity and passing the Rent Transparency Act. Thank you to Ryan Hickey, Patricia Santana, Elliot Heisler, Austin Malone, and the Housing Legal Services providers. Colleagues, I ask you for your vote in favor of this bill. Thank you, Majority Leader.
Recognizing Councilmember Osei.
Today, we are voting on a plan that meets the urgency of the moment. The Atlantic Avenue Mixed-Use Plan, AIM-UP, will unlock 4,600 new homes across Community Districts 3 and 8, and 1,900 of them will be income restricted. That's a large and necessary amount of new homes and more income restricted housing than this area has produced in the entire last decades. Through AIM-UP, 40% of units will be permanently income restricted, and 100% will be adding to New York's desperately low housing supply, putting downward pressure on rents for everyone. Beyond the necessary homes this plan unlocks, we have secured historic neighborhood investment, $215 million for safer streets, enhanced infrastructure, and vibrant parks. This includes long-needed improvements to St. Andrews, John Hancock, and Potomac playgrounds. We are redesigning the stretch of Atlantic so kids can cross in safety, seniors can stroll without fear, and small businesses can flourish along a calmer, greener corridor. Additionally, after 30 long years, we are going to address the homeownership and ownership issues surrounding Hattie Jones Court and Jewel McCoy Lane. This is the first step to bringing key repairs and improvements to the streets. And because housing justice includes looking out for everyone, we locked in $1.2 million for full-time tenant and homeowner legal assistance right in our district offices, plus citywide resources like Partners in Preservation and the anti-harassment tenant program so no one can bully our neighbors out of their homes. Some will ask, why build so much? My answer is simple. Displacement is not a force of nature. It is a policy choice. When we deprive our city of new homes, rents skyrocket and families are pushed out. When we say yes to new homes, to income-restricted homes, to making room for everyone so no one is priced out, we choose community over scarcity and inclusion over exclusion. This plan also invests in a workforce development program so the jobs of tomorrow go to the people who live here today. It even begins the long-awaited revival of the Bedford Atlantic Armory. With AIM-UP, we prove that Brooklyn's future can be abundant, equitable, prosperous, alive, and ours. I thank our council's land use team for shepherding us through endless negotiations and reviews, the Department of City Planning and other agencies for taking our community's feedback seriously, and to our neighbors who helped us shape this plan and emphasize the need for real affordable housing in the district. Thank you, Councilmember Hudson, my amazing staff, May Vutrapong Batana, Elijah Fox,
Councilmember, your
Arlene
time
Gillen,
has expired.
as well as the speaker. Thank you very much.
Seeing no one else signed up to speak, report of special committees.
None.
Report of standing committees.
Report of the Committee on Contracts, Intro 905A, Food Quality Service.
Amended and coupled on general orders.
Report of the Committee on Criminal Justice, Intro 412A, Notification Requirements.
Amended and coupled on general orders.
Report of the Committee on Environmental Protection, Resiliency, and Waterfronts, Intro 1067B, Flood Adaptation Assistance.
Amended and coupled on general orders.
Report of the Committee on Finance, Intro 1219, East Harlem Bid.
Coupled on general orders.
Preconsidered Reso 875, Organization Funding.
Coupled on general orders.
Preconsidered Reso 876 through Preconsidered Reso 880, Real Estate Taxes.
Coupled on general orders.
Preconsidered LU 289 and Reso 897 through Preconsidered LU 293 and Reso 901, Tax Exemptions.
Coupled on general orders.
Report of the Committee on General Welfare, Intro 1148A, Application Confirmation Notices.
Amended and coupled on general orders.
Report of the Committee on Governmental Operations, State and Federal Legislation, Preconsidered SLR 2 through Preconsidered SLR 5, various home rule messages.
Coupled on general orders.
Report of the Committee on Housing and Buildings, Intro 1037A, Rent Stabilized Unit Notices.
Amended and coupled on general orders.
Intro 1207A, Boiler Operating Engineer Licenses.
Amended and coupled on general orders.
Report of the Committee on Land Use, LU 257 through LU 266, various applications.
Approved with modifications and referred to the City Planning Commission pursuant to Section 197 of the New York City Charter.
LU 273 and Reso 8902, and LU 274 and Reso 903, disposition of city-owned property.
Coupled on general orders.
LU 275 through LU 278, various rezonings.
Approved with modifications and referred to the City Planning Commission pursuant to Section 197 of the New York City Charter.
LU 279 and Reso 904, and LU 280 and Reso 905, 19 Maspeth Avenue rezoning.
Coupled on general orders.
LU 281 and Reso 906, and LU 282 and Reso 907, 2201 to 2227 Neptune Avenue rezoning.
Coupled on general orders.
LUs 283 through LU 286, Western Rail Yards.
Approved with modifications and referred to the City Planning Commission pursuant to Section 197 of the New York City Charter.
Report of the Committee on Rules, Privileges, and Elections, preconsidered M122 and preconsidered Reso 908, approving the reappointment of Stephen Chu, Landmarks Preservation Commission.
Coupled on general orders.
Preconsidered M123 and preconsidered Reso 909, approving the reappointment of Angie Master, LPC.
Coupled on general orders.
Preconsidered M124 and preconsidered Reso 910, approving the appointment of Stephen Wilder, LPC.
Coupled on general orders.
Preconsidered M125 and preconsidered Reso 911, approving the appointment of Erasmus Ikpembe, LPC.
Coupled on general orders.
Preconsidered M126 and preconsidered Reso 912, approving the appointment of Frank Mahan, Landmarks Preservation Commission.
Coupled on general orders.
M127 and Reso 913, approving the appointment of Robert J. Firestone, Tax Commission.
Coupled on general orders.
Report of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, Intro 676A, electric for-hire vehicles.
Amended and coupled on general orders.
And the general orders calendar. LU 257 and Reso 914 through LU 266 and Reso 923, Atlantic Avenue Mixed-Use Plan.
Coupled on general orders.
LU 267 and Reso 924 and LU 268 and Reso 925, 2510 Coney Island Avenue rezoning.
Coupled on general orders. I now ask that the clerk take a roll call vote on all of the items coupled on today's general orders calendar.
Councilmember Stevens?
I have a correction, no on SRL2, and I on the rest. And since I'm back, congratulations to my daughter who graduated college today. That's why I'm not there in person.
Thank you, Councilmember. Abreu?
Congrats to all my colleagues. I vote aye.
Aviles?
Aye on all.
Ayala?
Aye.
Thank you. Banks?
Aye on all.
Botcher?
Aye.
Brennan?
Aye.
Brewer?
I vote aye on all, except I abstain on Stephen Wilder, Erasmus Ikpembe, and Frank Mahan. Not that they're not great for their Landmarks Preservation Commission, but I don't think they had enough oversight in terms of questioning at the committee. I know that my friends in Harlem, people who want to preserve Harlem, are very much paying attention to their nominees, and hopefully we'll make sure that they are strong preservationists. But without the information, it's hard to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Brooks Powers?
I'd like to vote aye. I'd like to also congratulate all passing bills and the nominees that are being selected today, particularly Mr. Wilder and Ikpembe. I found that they had tremendous experience and value that they will bring to the LPC, so congratulations to them.
Caban?
Aye on all.
Carr?
No on preconsidered SLR2 and preconsidered Resolution 875, and aye on the rest.
Thank you. De La Rosa?
Aye on all.
Dinowitz?
Aye on all.
Thank you. Felder? Thank you. Feliz?
Aye on all.
Gennaro?
I vote aye on all, with the exception of SLR2, on which I vote no.
Gutierrez.
Aye on all.
Hanif.
Aye on all.
Hanks.
Aye on all.
Hudson.
Aye.
Joseph.
Aye on all.
Krishnan. Lee. Lewis.
Aye on all.
Marmorato.
I vote aye on all, with the exception of preconsidered resolution 875 and SLR 2. I vote no.
Thank you. Marte.
Aye on all.
Mealy.
Aye.
Menon.
Aye.
Morano.
Aye on all with the exception of Resolution 875 and SLR 2.
Moya.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Narcisse.
I vote aye.
Nurse.
I vote aye on all. Thank you.
Osei.
I vote aye on all.
Palladino.
I vote aye on all except for preconsidered Reso 875, and I vote no on SLR 2.
Powers. Wrestler.
Permission to explain my vote?
Permission granted.
Great. I vote aye on all, but abstain on the LPC nominees, Stephen Wilder and Erasmus Ikemje, and Frank Mann. I also just want to say that pleased with the home rules or state legislative resolutions that we're passing today, especially SLR 2, which will ensure that our streets finally get cleaned up. The automating enforcement by the Department of Sanitation will ensure that cars actually move for alternate side parking. When street sweepers go around our communities, they pick up a ton of garbage on average per route, but they can't clean up our streets if they can't reach the curb, which then leads to more garbage, which leads to more rats, which undermines our quality of life. This is a smart and effective use of technology that will make a major difference in our communities, and grateful for the support of so many colleagues today.
Thank you. Rivera.
I vote aye.
Salam.
Vote aye on all, with the exception of the landmarks nominees.
Thank you. Salamanca.
Aye on all.
Sanchez.
Aye on all, and I'd like to congratulate my colleagues.
Thank you. Schulman.
Aye on all.
Ung.
Aye on all.
Williams.
Permission to explain my vote?
Permission granted.
Thank you. I just wanted to add more context. So about 3 decades ago, the Jamaica Water Supply closed the wells. It was a problem that my predecessor's predecessor inherited. City and state government agreed that they were responsible for the rising groundwater. They did nothing. So again, I just really want to thank the speaker and my colleagues and Chair Gennaro, who I believe was a staffer at the time, that this issue really became a problem for actually doing something. And I don't think we get a lot of opportunities to make big impact and solve a 3-decade-years-old problem. So I just want to thank everybody for their vote today. And I just also wanted to thank from the Ledge Division, Sierra and Ricky. And I proudly vote aye.
Gennaro.
I wish to amend my vote to aye on all.
Thank you, sir. One.
Aye on all.
Zhuang.
Aye.
Ariola.
I first would like to disclose that my son works for the Department of Sanitation, which is listed on the transparency resolution. I am a no on preconsidered resolution 875 and SLR 2, and aye on all the rest. Thank you.
Thank you. Farias.
I vote aye on all.
Speaker Adams.
Congratulating all of my colleagues for passing phenomenal legislation today. I vote aye on all.
All items on today's general order calendar are adopted by a vote of 49 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, with the exception of Resolution 875, which was adopted by a vote of 43 in the affirmative, 6 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, and M124, 125, 126, and accompanying resolutions, which were adopted by a vote of 46 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, and 2 abstentions, and SLR 2, which was adopted by a vote of 42 in the affirmative, 7 in the negative, and 0 abstentions. Introduction and reading of bills.
All bills have been referred to committee as indicated on today's agenda.
Thank you. We will now move into the discussion of resolutions. Seeing no one signed up to speak, I call on recognized Councilmember Hanif.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Thank you, Speaker Adams, for including Resolution 368 in support of the Living Wage for Musicians Act on today's agenda. I'd also like to thank Council Members Osei, Rivera, Menon, Caban for introducing this resolution alongside me, and Chairs De La Rosa and Lewis for seeing the bill through committee. Most of us, myself included, use streaming platforms as our primary way of listening to music. The songs that we stream soundtrack our lives. But the popularity of music streaming platforms has not benefited the artists that make the songs we listen to. Currently, the average recording artist receives less than a third of a penny when someone streams their song on Spotify. These low rates of pay make it incredibly difficult for musicians to eke out a living. We all know that New York City makes the best music in the entire world. If we want to keep it that way, we have to make sure musicians can make enough money to live here. The living wage.
You can continue.
I have like two paragraphs.
Councilmember Hanif, you have to wrap.
Okay. Okay. I'd like to thank. Alex.
Quiet in the chambers, please. Quiet in the chambers. Respectfully to our local union, she has to wrap.
I'd like to thank Alex Liao, Mus Lamia, Nishat Chaudhry, and Matt Malloy from my team, as well as Elizabeth Ars, Ree Osawara, and Natalie Meltzer from the Legislative Division for their work on this resolution. And thank you to UMAW for all of your inspiring organizing, especially Damon Krukowski, Spencer Peppett, and Joey Le Neve de Francesco. I urge my colleagues to vote yes.
Thank you, Councilmember Hanif. Seeing no one else signed up to speak on resolutions, we will now have a voice vote on today's resolution. If you wish to vote against or abstain from any of today's resolutions, please notify the Legislative Documents Unit by email or by approaching the dais. I'll now read today's resolution into the record. Resolution 368A calls on the United States Congress to reintroduce and pass, and the President to sign, the Living Wage for Musicians Act. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Any abstentions? The ayes have it. We will now move into general discussion, and I'd like to first recognize Majority Whip Brooks Powers, followed by Councilmember Lewis, then Dinowitz.
Thank you, and today I'm introducing two important pieces of legislation. First, I'm introducing a bill that would require the city to conduct a recurring environmental impact study of JFK Airport operations in Southeast Queens. For far too long, residents in communities like mine have lived with the daily impacts of noise and air pollution from airport traffic without adequate monitoring, transparency, or mitigation. This bill directs the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability to work with city agencies to collect data on air.
Sergeants, please hold the time. Folks that are leaving the chambers, please do so quietly. You can continue.
This bill directs the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability to work with city agencies to collect data on air quality, noise, and health outcomes, consult with local environmental justice groups, and publish regular public reports. It also requires the city to recommend and implement programs that reduce environmental harm and to engage the Port Authority on needed changes to the JFK lease agreement. If we are serious about environmental justice, we must back that up with data and action. This legislation ensures that environmental concerns in Southeast Queens are taken seriously. I'm also proud to introduce a resolution in support of two critical state bills, Senate Bill 1244, Assembly Bill 1587, and Senate Bill 7275A, and the Assembly bill accompanying that is 5341A, which would strengthen citing rules for cannabis storefronts and advertising. These bills would increase the minimum distance between cannabis businesses and sensitive sites like schools, playgrounds, libraries, and houses of worship, while also clarifying how those distances are measured. We must ensure legalization does not come at the expense of the community well-being. I urge the state legislature to pass these bills and the governor to sign them into law. Thank you.
Recognizing Councilmember Lewis, followed by Dinowitz, then Nurse.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. Today, I'm proud to introduce three important pieces of legislation, each of which reflect on commitment to equity, transparency, and accessibility for all New Yorkers. The first, Reso 887, calls on the state and governor to pass legislation that would require employers to disclose all forms of compensation, including bonuses, stock options, and commissions. While salary transparency laws have moved us in the right direction, too many workers are still left negotiating in the dark. Employees deserve to understand the full scope of what they are being offered. Without clear information on total compensation, workers, especially women of color and people of color, remain at a disadvantage when negotiating pay. Full transparency is essential to achieving real pay equity. The second, Intro 1286, addresses the responsible placement of adult-use cannabis dispensaries. It would prohibit any dispensary from operating within 500 feet of a public youth facility. As the legal cannabis market continues to grow, it is important that we implement thoughtful regulations that consider the needs of young people. The last, Intro 1287, part of the Wheel Deal package in partnership with Councilmember Marte, requires the current bike share program to offer a discounted rate to public school students who are 16 years of age or older. For many young people, bike share programs provide a critical link to school, work, and other opportunities. By removing financial barriers, we are helping students move more freely through the city and encouraging sustainable, healthy modes of transportation. Each of these bills address a different challenge New Yorkers are experiencing. I urge my colleagues to support these bills and to help move our city forward. Thank you.
Recognizing Councilmember Dinowitz, followed by Nurse, then Aviles.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. Good afternoon, colleagues. Today I'm introducing Bill 1281 of 2025, a bill that addresses really an urgent financial matter facing countless tenants and shareholders, our constituents. And I'm proud to stand with Councilmembers Bottcher and Holden in support of this measure. This legislation, 1281, amends Local Law 157 of 2016, which mandates natural gas detectors in hotels and residential buildings. The Department of Buildings set a compliance deadline of May 1st, which is obviously passed. And the intent of Local Law 157 is sound. It's to protect residents from gas leaks. But this May 1st deadline is utterly unachievable. Yet despite this unachievable deadline, the fines for New Yorkers, our constituents, will begin to mount. 18 of us even outlined some of these obstacles in our April letter to the Department of Buildings Commissioner. The market lacks compliant devices. They do not exist. Our law requires detectors to meet NFPA standard 715 of 2023. Only one manufacturer has produced a compliant device. However, this company has faced crippling supply chain issues preventing timely orders. Worse, the sole compliant device has been massively recalled due to a critical malfunction that prevents it from alerting consumers to gas leaks. The one otherwise viable option is now off the shelves. And even if devices were available, compliant installation of plug-in models is often impossible in New York City apartments. They're required to be 3 to 10 feet horizontally of an appliance and within 12 inches of a ceiling, and most of us don't have outlets near the ceiling. The consequence is clear. New Yorkers will be unjustly fined for failing to meet a mandate that is quite literally impossible to fill. This bill, 1281, simply postpones the mandate, requiring alarms 1 year after the Department of Buildings confirms devices are sufficiently available. I encourage everyone to join us in co-sponsoring this common sense bill, 1281, to shield New Yorkers from unwarranted fines and to ensure true safety remains our paramount goal. Thank you, Madam Majority Leader.
Recognizing Councilmember Nurse, followed by Aviles, then Gutierrez.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Today I'm introducing Intro 1294, a bill that names and shames deed thieves. When it comes to crime, we are quick to post photos of people who steal diapers and baby formula from Rite Aid. But when it comes to the parasites who commit deed fraud and destabilize entire neighborhoods, they often escape public scrutiny. Since 2014, there have been over 3,000 deed fraud complaints, and those are just the cases we know about, with the number likely being much higher. These thieves prey on older adults, particularly Black elders, people falling behind on their property or water taxes, and families facing foreclosure. They exploit moments of financial stress and vulnerability to rob people of the American dream. They are white-collar thugs, enriching themselves at the expense of those who are most vulnerable. This bill would send a warning that we will catch you, we will shame you, and we will make sure every New Yorker sees your name, your face, and your identifying information. We will expose these criminals who go on to often reoffend and who are helped by being able to hide behind LLCs and a veil of secrecy. While the council has invested in estate planning and foreclosure prevention and legal services for older adults, more must be done. I thank Councilmember Chiosei and Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso for co-priming this bill, and I urge you all to sign onto it. Thank you, Majority Leader.
Recognizing Councilmember Aviles, followed by Gutierrez, then Salam.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Today I'm introducing a resolution 870 alongside Councilmember De La Rosa and Councilmember Joseph, which would establish May in New York City schools as Labor History Month. While New York City is still a union town with the highest union density rate in all of the country, it probably doesn't come as a surprise to many of you that union membership has been steadily declining since the 70s. This is something we need to fix, and if we have any hope at all of addressing inequity. With so much of our education system focused on job readiness and career prep for young people, little to no work has been done to prepare our future workforce to understand and protect their rights and guard themselves against exploitation both now and in the future. And now, with anti-immigrant sentiment at fever pitch, states like Florida looking to roll back child labor laws to fill labor shortages created by the fulfillment of their own racist fantasies to deport all brown people. While it might seem that this trend is new, as of the most recent Trump administration, a 2023 study by the Economic Policy Institute revealed that 10 states have introduced legislation to weaken child labor standards, dismantling gains made over a century ago after the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. Such loosening of these critical laws not only leaves our children vulnerable, but creates opportunities to further dismantle unions and exacerbate inequality. Nurturing young people to understand their inherent dignity is one of the greatest investments we can make to ensure a more just and equitable future. I encourage all my colleagues to sign on to this resolution and hope that our state will follow California in ensuring that this is part of our curriculum. Thank you for your consideration.
Recognizing Councilmember Gutierrez, followed by Salam, then Brewer.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. Today I'm proud to introduce two bills rooted in a shared principle, that is of protecting New Yorkers. First, I'm introducing the Safe Pregnancy and Opioid Treatment Act, a bill that would require the health department to educate providers on how to safely treat opioid use disorder during and after pregnancy and provide Narcan at specific sites. A report by the DOHMH recorded 241 deaths within a 5-year period, with approximately 1 in 7 of those deaths attributed to overdoses, more than 3/4 of which involved opioids. This is a harm reduction bill, a maternal health bill, a common sense public health bill, and it's one that will save lives, especially for the pregnant New Yorkers who have been suffering in silence and ignored because of stigmas that might exist. I also just want to thank Councilmember Hanks and Chair Schulman, who have already co-sponsored this bill. Speaker Adams and this council have put maternal mortality front and center. We're not afraid to be honest and have painful conversations when needed to put an end to these preventable deaths. Thank you to the Speaker, of course, for her support and contributions to this bill. The second bill I'm introducing is the Fair Business Practices Act resolution that calls on the state to finally outlaw unfair and abusive business practices. Right now, New York lags behind 42 other states in protecting consumers, small businesses, and nonprofits from scams, junk fees, and AI-driven fraud. I want to thank Attorney General Letitia James for her leadership on this bill. I encourage all of my colleagues to sign on and join me in protecting New Yorkers. Thank you.
Recognizing Councilmember Salam, followed by Brewer, then Narcisse.
Madam Speaker and colleagues, today I rise to honor the life of Congressman Charles Bernard Rangel, the Lion of Lenox Avenue, who passed away on May 26th of this year, 2025. A decorated war veteran, a founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus, and one of the longest-serving members of Congress. He was Harlem's unwavering champion. From the Gang of Four to the halls of power, he fought for justice, equity, and opportunity for all. His legacy lives in the lives he changed, the leaders he inspired, including myself, and the dignity he brought to public service. To his family, we offer our deepest condolences. And to Harlem and beyond, we recommit to carrying his vision forward. May he rest in power, and may he rest in perfect peace. Thank you.
Recognizing Councilmember Brewer, followed by Narcisse, then Ressler.
Thank you very much. Olivia Sohn.
Then Ressler.
Thank you very much. Olivia Sohn is an intern in our office from Washington University. We'll probably have another 100 interns during the summer, but I want to thank Olivia for being here. I, too, want to say how much we're going to miss Congressman Rangel. He was incredibly good to me for the last 40 years. And also, I want to express condolences to the family of Tom Robbins, a reporter, an investigative reporter for many years, and he passed last night. I want to mention Reso number 882. It is a resolution that talks about Cuba. You probably know in '62, Kennedy issued a proclamation on the trade embargo, and then Obama opened up Cuba in 21, and of course Trump closed it. And the Biden administration kept it going after it was closed by Trump first time around. Biden opened it up a week before he left office, and of course on January 20th, Trump reinstated the trade embargo. I mention all this because the only other countries that have this trade embargo are Syria, Iran, and North Korea. And it seems to me that the work that we are doing in this country would fit well with Cuba, and I would like to say that it should not be a state sponsor of terrorism, and on that list were those other 3 countries that I mentioned. Thank you very much.
Recognizing Councilmember Narcisse, followed by Ressler, then Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Madam Speaker, for your leadership. For far too long, the people of Canarsie have been left behind when it comes to transit access. My district is a transit desert, and our residents, students, working families, seniors, people with disabilities deserve more reliable and accessibility transportation We need that in Canarsie. I don't want to keep taking too long, but 1293, understand where we live in the South Brooklyn. We cannot get here. It takes us about an hour and a half, and we're talking about environmental problem. We're talking about climate change. We need a break from Canarsie to get a ferry. So Canarsie once had a ferry service, and it's time we brought it back. A ferry would give residents more ways to get where they need to go, while also helping to revitalize a pier that we have that could truly use the boost right now. It is a viable transit option and is an investment for the city and is a beautiful waterfront where everybody can enjoy. I also proud to introduce, and I have to say thank you to Flossie that's been standing with me for decades. I'm also proud to introduce legislation that will require the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to launch a public information and outreach campaign when it comes to uterine fibrosis. Fibroid is real for a lot, especially Black women. This is a condition that affects millions of women, especially when we come to our community. We know how health inequity is going throughout. So please, my colleagues, look into it. By increasing that, by addressing fibrosis, it will help a lot of women in our community, our neighbors, our friends, our sisters and brothers. I urge my colleague to support this legislation. It's about time. And I'm also proud to introduce a resolution calling on the state to require private developers of battery energy storage system to carry liability insurance and provide financial support to nearby homeowners in the event of a battery.
Councilmember, your time has
To
expired.
clean energy must never come at the expense of public safety
Thank
and
you,
property
Councilmember Narcisse.
protection.
Your
Thank
time
you.
has
Thank you.
expired. Thank you so much. Councilmember Rustler.
Thank you very much, Madam Majority Leader. I firstly just want to echo Councilmember Brewer's sentiments about the passing of Tom Robbins. Tom was one of the truly great investigative journalists in our city. For many years at the Village Voice, more recently at the city. He was behind that Eric Adams table of success, linked all of the various corrupt actors in the Adams orbit to the mayor. He was, for many years, a professor of journalism at the CUNY Journalism School. He was the very first person to say to me that Adrian Adams should be our next mayor 3 years ago. He was a tenacious, brilliant, and savvy journalist. He held the powers that be accountable, and he will be missed dearly. He was a constituent and somebody who I admired immensely. I also am very proud to be introducing legislation today, of which the number I do not know, but the bill creates a cooling off period for the most powerful folks that enter into city service. Essentially, this would prohibit employees with substantial policymaking discretion, senior staff at City Hall, agency heads, et cetera, from participating in determining policy for any previous employer that they had worked for the previous 2 years. It would apply to lobbyists and their clients, to law firms and the clients that lawyers represented. It is important that we close the revolving door in city government between lobbying and public service. And we passed legislation earlier this year to shut the revolving door on the way out for people like Frank Carone when they leave city service, but it's important that we also shut that door for the people entering in so they don't do favors for the lobbying firms and the companies that they previously worked for when they enter into the public sector. And I hope my colleagues will sponsor whatever the bill number is, and I trust you all will figure it out. Thank you. 1295.
Recognizing Councilmember Amelie, followed by Hanif.
Good afternoon, Speaker Adams and my colleagues. As we gather today, I would like to honor the life and legacy of Congressman Charles B. Rangel, who passed away on May 26 at the age of 94. Harlem native, a career war veteran. Congressman Rangel dedicated nearly 5 decades to public service, representing New York's 13th Congressional District. From 1971 to 2017. And he was the first African-American who House the Ways and Means, was the chair. And I would like to also, in solidarity, I can say the passing of Judge Luther C. Williams, Jr., passing on May 30th. the father of Shane's restaurant owner. His father passed, and he was a friend and a dedicated servant to the community. After he retired, he still was in my political club and did anything possible to help the community. And I would like to, as we gather today, I would like to honor the life and legacy. I'm sorry, I did that. And additionally, I would like to talk about the Asian American heritage. I want to emphasize the importance of the Resolution 844 that we passed earlier this month, establishing Chinese American Railroad workers on Memorial Day. And I would like to say, just this past Monday, we all observed Memorial Day, a solemn occasion to remember and pay tribute to the brave men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to our nation. Their courage and dedication continue to inspire our commitment to justice, equality, and the well-being of all New Yorkers. Thank you.
Recognizing Councilmember Hanif.
Thank you. Thanks to this council, May is officially Lupus Awareness Month in New York City, recognized through Resolution 550, which we passed in 2023. As someone living with lupus, I want to honor my fellow lupus warriors across New York City. Each of us carries a different story, but we all face the reality of living with an incurable autoimmune disease. That's why we need more public education on lupus symptoms, faster diagnoses, and better access to specialists. But awareness isn't enough. We need policy changes. That includes a fully ADA accessible transit system, remote work protections, and free public health care. These are not luxuries, they're life-saving. I've shared my lupus journey many times, so folks understand why I may take the stairs a little slower and why I'm so committed to building a caring, accessible city. Living with lupus taught me grit, and more importantly, compassion for myself and for others. That compassion fuels my fight for disability justice, immigrant justice, universal health care, reproductive care, and workplace protections. Lupus shaped my leadership, and I'm proud to keep fighting for a New York City that includes all of us. Thank you.
Seeing no one else signed up to speak, I will now call on Speaker Adrian Adams to close today's stated meeting.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. The stated meeting of May 28th, 2025 is hereby adjourned.